So we're thrilled that you all have stayed. Thank you. And I am especially filled with joy to introduce my friend Julie, who's feeling a bit shy. She is a French actress, producer, director, and now distributor, and jury member this year on the feature film selection. She is a producer of very engaged animated and live-action films. But more importantly, she's a mother. And because she's a mother, she's therefore an activist. And she's a champion for diversity and inclusion, which are things that we've been talking about all day and we will continue to talk about. So she has made a wonderful film that's called Cinéast, where you interviewed how many?
20 female director and 20 male director, and just now all around the world 20 as well.
So it's a big project you've been working on for 4 years. So she's going to show us a bit of that, and it's quite moving for all of us in France, and hopefully for everyone, because at the end there's a bit with Agnès Varda, and then she's going to just sort of share with us her take on what we were doing in France, and Tracy's making some sort of motion. That's okay, they can come in. Yeah. Good. And she's just going to share a little bit with us after we watch the clip of the film, your take on what we're trying to do in France as part of a larger movement for women, and we're thrilled that you're here. Thank you. So,
and I'm here because les Femmes s'animent invited me, so I just wanted to leave Corinne Cooper, who invited me, to say 2 words about their wonderful group association.
Thank you, Julie. So, yeah, we were very much, of course, inspired by Women in Animation. This association was created 26 years ago, and we were created 5 years ago. So we are very young, but very much inspired by the work that these ladies did all this time. And since a few years, we collaborate with Women in Animation doing this event, and we are amazed by the progress that they have done and that we have done in parallel, and the changes that start to be seen. I said this morning we were very proud to announce that the CNC was giving this year a special bonus for the films that are led by a balanced team of lead people. So it means that it includes, we have selected 10 professions, and out of these 10 departments, 5 of them have to be held by a woman. And then these films have an access of 15% on top of what they were supposed to get from the CNC, which is a huge achievement this year. And hopefully we will work very hard to get it also for TV animation, because at the moment it's for feature films. So I will let Julie present her film and then to tell what she did, because I invited her, but why did I invite her? It's because she invited me in another event, which was in March, which was amazing. She invited all the French associations working in the medias about women equality, but also how do you say, inclusion and diversity and all that. So we had 30 associations all in the same room, telling about what they were doing, their strategies, their ideas, their questions. It was so inspiring, and really it was a huge moment. So yes, I invited her to talk about this as well, because she's very much involved in all these actions. So that's it.
Let's watch the video.
Yes. And speak all together with all the associations. Wow, quelle émotion. Donc, as Agnès Varda would say, in animation, You are directors free to do poetry. It's not a theory. So I'm very happy to be in the animation world in Annecy with you. I went all around the world, and at the end of the day, it's about numbers and data. At the end of the day, it's how much woman there is in the industry. I started as an actress, and there was more, later on in this room, 100 women in the drama schools in my class, 100 girls and 10 boys. Well, in the reverse, as in your industry, if you look at the numbers, female lead character is 17%. So it's the same for in the cinema. It's 10% for women, and it's the reverse. All the parts are for men. So they're 10% in the drama class, and when you get into the industry, there is more parts for men than for women. So as an actress, you're used to have inequality in a way. When you arrive in the work, you think it's normal. Men are more, they have a bigger salary because there is more parts and there are less men. So you get used to that difference with salary, which is not normal, but you get used to it. And so when I started in independent production, I started by, I actually, as an actress, started my career with Agnès Varda. That's why it's like my mother. She's like my mother. But she was a model because she was, as well as a director, a producer, independent producer. She was doing everything in family. So I was very impressed to see that little woman working with her company, with everyone. But in reality, she wasn't normal. She was the exception. She was the exception. She was one of the first in France. And for us now, that seemed normal. It wasn't normal. I really wanted to produce because she gave me the pleasure of cinema and of helping and be there for directors. So I continued my work as an actress, as a producer, to help the directors. And then I realized that it's the same in production. For the directors, in school they're 50-50. And why? After school, we have only 25% of female directors in France, and it's a lot. So
in live action.
In live action. So if we get back to numbers and data, here today in Annecy, you have, for school films, 64% of women, and for short film, 40% of, women and male co-directors, because you are, in animation, is a bit different from...
Sometimes
you have double. And in TV, it's 33%, and in feature, 12%, 10%. So... And I think in the industry it's a bit different if you look at data, but here in Annecy. So I was very surprised that it's only 25% of directors in France. So I did that documentary and I went to ask to 20 women directors in France and just asked them, the new generation as well, what is the difference? What is a French film? And so we did that documentary. And then, well... If we ask to women, we should ask to male directors. So all together, as in the documentary, include the men, the male. So I asked directors, and that was so funny to see that all the women had an answer to the question of what is a women film and what is to be a women director, because they all have been faced to the question, so they could all answer something about it. And when I was asking Michel Hazanavicius, Luc Besson, or Desplechin, or Thomas Gayet, the new generation, they just went, nobody never asked me the question. So it was very interesting to ask men, what is the difference? And, well, you should ask women. No, I'm asking you. So it was very interesting to speak with them about all the questions, and it's so that was the documentary. But at the end of these two documentaries, which I am not a director, I just did it for the pleasure of the question because I'm very curious to understand what's happening in our industry, I realized, okay, so we have 25% in France of directors. What about the rest of the world? So I went and I traveled and I asked in India and I went all around the world, and that's how that documentary arrived. And at the end, when I did that documentary, I interviewed Céline Sciamma, Rebecca Zlotowski, and we were all into that idea of we should change, like you did in animation, Corinne, with Les Femmes s'animent, and we were talking about that, of how can we do, and then the Weinstein affair came and was like a tremblement de terre, earthquake in our industry. The Americans had that Time's Up answer very quickly, and they were very structured, and they had all these think tank, they thought about it, and they reacted very quickly. In England with Emma Watson as well, and in Spain, you just saw, well, everywhere. And in France, it was much more complex, and so we spoke together, and with the girls, we decided there was two different things. There's one which is political, which is important, which is 50-50 2020, this idea of making a think tank like the Americans of Time's Up did. So that's what we did. And Les Femmes s'animent are part of that group of reflection and changing le rapport de force. How do you say that? I don't know, le rapport de force.
Changing the balance of power.
The balance of power, that's the way we're going to change the violence. And so from that moment, let's make a movement. And very, very quickly then we decided that Time's Up was also to give an help to women that were in the shade and we are in the light, so how we could do something as well for women. And we did with la Fondation des Femmes, which is a foundation in France, Maintenant on agit, now we act, and stop the polemic and stop all the reaction, because in France there was many things, and let's do something concrete. And so we raised money to help association, because in France, vraiment sur le terrain, in daily life, this association that was working, because the numbers of dépôt de plainte, I'm sorry, number of victims were 30% more, and so there was an urgency to help on the everyday life. So we did these two things together, and we worked for a year together, but in a separate kind of, we all did something, and I think that was very in the urgency. And at the end of that year, we decided, okay, right, but there is like something we need to, that shouldn't stop now, and maybe it's to get, like I heard, and I was very impressed with all these great women just before, but it's together now that we're going to go further. So in Les Femmes dans l'animation, they had proposals. In the documentary as well, at La SCAM, they had proposals. Les Femmes dans l'audiovisuel public just signed a charte with a system to work. And we all did many things. There was Diaspora Act also, with a representation of black women in this French cinema. So all these associations were doing wonderful things. And so we talked with Corinne thinking, okay, now the word sororité, that really very... sorority, you say?
Does it exist in English? Yeah.
Yeah, let's work together and go further. There is also in our industry a group of women actresses that work on after 50 years old, as a producer, as an actor, what it means. So we were all together in March deciding now we need to get even more
sharing,
sharing absolutely all our events, everything we're doing to get to be stronger. Because if you look at all these numbers, and again there is many coming out every year, there is something about trusting ourselves, women of... We have here in France, and I will finish with that, but we have here in France now the World Cup, Women World Cup football in France. Soccer, you say. Oops, sorry. Soccer. La Coupe du Monde de football féminin de la FIFA. Féminine. And so there is a movement that came because everybody said, oh no, it's not going to work about the women. But we realized with that World Cup that in TF1, the first day, it was 11 million people watching that World Cup. They were saying, oh no, it's going to be 2 million, 3 million, 4 max. Okay, it was historical. There is something changing, but if you go into in the countryside in France and you go into a city and say, is there a woman striking to ask for a football, license, a soccer license for women in that city? No, they're not asking for it. But when one is creating, it's full. All the women are playing football. So that means they don't ask for the license in that cities, but when they exist, they're full. Which means for women, we need to make things to start. And not let's wait for them to ask. I did it in English. So Corinne, thank you for inviting me. You are doing a wonderful work in animation. So now I'm just going to pass you the mic because with Arceling.
You know, I think we've covered everything anyway. I'm very happy that you came. I'm very happy that the festival invited you to be part of the jury because of what you do for women in all the fields, even in soccer. And I think it's so important. And it shows that you are very open-minded and very, sparkling and very, you have a big attention for all these matters. So thank you very much.
But actually, this morning we met with all the juries in Annecy, and I counted the number of women and men, and we were equal. So Annecy signed the chart for 50-50 2020. So Annecy is making that effort. They're doing it, trying to change. Thank you.
So there's one last person who's going to speak, which is Jinko, who's a tireless also champion. And she started an amazing initiative, which she is going to explain. Do you want to come up here? Want to come up here? Okay. Yes. You all set?
I know it's been a very long day. It's been a remarkable day, and I want to thank all the speakers, our generous sponsors and donors, and you for attending the third Women in Animation Summit. Today concludes the three-part series with Belonging. In 2015, we announced our 50-50 by 2025 initiative. Part 1 in 2016 was about unconscious bias, followed by last year's summit about inclusion. We've made progress over the past 4 years. Today, in the US studio, leaders are predominantly women. We've grown the female creative workforce from 20% to 24%. And more women are graduating from animation schools than ever. There is still much work to do, but it's a clearer picture. Thank you, Stacy, Catherine, and USC for the study. We need to close the gap between the top and bottom. Focus must be to get women into the pipeline, retain and support career women, and promote them as they gain experience. We also need to reduce subjectivity and ambiguity with process. Lastly, I want to share one more thought with you. First, let me tell you a little story. My name is Jinko. It means a child who seeks. But as a child, I wanted to change my name to Jinko. There was no one called Jinko. My classmates made fun of my name, and Jinko was a very popular name. Then, when I was 8, we immigrated to the US. A very white Protestant and Catholic neighborhood. Evermore, I didn't fit in, but my father was clever and told me to go by my nickname, Jin, so that people could at least say my name correctly. I realized much later in life that I was lucky to be named Jinko instead of Jinko. My nickname could have easily turned into junk. It wasn't easy, but I'm here today with years of success as a producer. It's a childhood dream that I had since watching my first film, Lady and the Tramp. We all need to do our work to create and foster a world where everyone feels accepted, respected, included, and supported. I also believe each of us need to do our part. We are all empowered to follow your dream and find our way. Thank you all for this tremendous day. Please join us now for our cocktail concert next door, hosted by our sister organization, LFA. Thank you.